All right, everybody, we're recording. So I'm Sarah Purdy, formerly. I'm a physician assistant. I'm the PA president-elect currently. I'm the past legislative chair. And what we have today, we're here to talk about an organization that's created this business model that's PA friendly, that's on the forefront of trying to connect providers to providers for various reasons, depending on what your need is. So Doctor for Providers, we have two of them here today. We have Dr. Dan Cousin and we have Dr. Grinman here joining us. I'm going to go over briefly kind of their backgrounds. We'll let them kind of talk about the service. And just to kind of also preface a couple things, we do have some job openings coming up with some other companies PAVMT will be posting in the future. Some of these require supervising physicians, some don't. Some people are coming here for entrepreneur type things. So whatever your need is, we'll answer all questions. And then you'll have plenty of follow-up with both of the physicians here. Yay, jobs. I know, right? You can keep the chat. Jobs are great, right? Whether you're creating your own seat at the table or, bringing your physician with you. So we have Dr. Grinman here. I'm sure he could wave. He's in the black polo shirt.
Hi, how are you?
So he is a board certified neurology and sleep medicine, American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. So we got all kinds of great stuff here. He is currently specializing in remote intraoperative neurophysiological monitoring, very complex spine and brain surgeries around the country. So we have a lot of expertise in this area here. Bachelor's from Cornell, his MD from sunny upstate Medical University, did his neurology residence at North Shore, very, very prestigious programs here. So we are very excited and happy to have his expertise along here. We have also, with the nice white background, Doctor for Providers, we have Dr. Dan here, also very qualified, fellowship trained in diagnostic radiology, board certified by the American Board of Radiology and the National Board of Physicians and Surgeons. He's the clinical director of a private radiology practice in Florida, over 20 years experience in academic and private practice, clinical and administrative roles. His bachelor's from Harvard, magna cum laude, and another Albert Einstein College of Medicine. So such wide backgrounds, such great experience. And these providers have felt very strongly of the PA practice, how much we can be utilized and what we can really offer with team-based care. So they've come together to create this network of their fellow providers, right, who are interested in collaborating, team-based educational type, and who have been wanting to collaborate with other physician assistants. So with that in mind, they had the passion, they created the need, and here we are. So with that intro, I will let whichever one would like to speak first. Dr.
I can go first.
Grinman. And if you have any questions as we go, feel free to use the chat box. And take it away, Dr. Grinman.
All right.
A lot of excited people.
Sure. First thing I want to say is no matter what our backgrounds are, both myself and Dr. Dan, we're extremely down-to-earth guys. We love working with people. We love talking to all of you. The reason we came up with this idea for me personally is because I'm licensed in so many different states for what I do. I've had the opportunity over the last couple of years to work with several advanced practice providers in different types of practices to be their collaborating or supervising physician. And I noticed that there was a big gap in, there were more people coming to me that I could help. And I realized that there was really a big need for people out there who really wanted to practice semi-independently or independently, but the states were requiring them to have a physician as a collaborator, or they really just wanted to have a physician, in the team-based care sort of approach. And so that's how the idea sort of germinated. And when I spoke to Dr. Dan about it, he absolutely loved the idea. And that's how the company started. We do have many years experience in matching providers and physicians in other fields. So we thought for that reason also it would be a perfect match for us to work together. And so this is how it started. Dr. Dan, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Yeah, I really think that this is the future. We had a revolution in e-commerce, right? Amazon.com. We have a revolution in cars. We have like Tesla and, electric car revolution. And I really think the next revolution that's coming is in the medical space. And Dr. Grimman and I recognize that advanced practice providers are really the future of medicine and the presence of medicine, because there's just not enough doctors to go around. So the government recognizes this. This is really a trend that we're capturing on right now. And, I'm really grateful to Sarah and the group for letting us speak to you about this. And you all should give yourselves an applause and pat on the back for your desires to want to, take the initiative and not just take it, but do it the right way, because there's right and wrong ways to do this. It's in any business, it's always about what are the 5 Ps? One of them is people. And because if you don't have the right people involved, then you're not going, you basically have a glass ceiling. So the limiting step is definitely involves the people. So that's really what Dr. Grimman and I are here to try to help you with, is to get great talent. Personally, I've been helping with medical legal consulting staffing for a long time with my network of colleagues. And, these are people who were most impressive with from their training institutions. Most of them either went to Harvard, Yale, or Columbia. Some went to Johns Hopkins, Mass General. And they're kind of best kept secrets as far as, their abilities and talents and pedigrees. And I think it really helps to have great people as far as credentials go for your actual practices. So, I feel like, sorry, I'm rambling. The doctors who most likely want to just take care of their own patients and not have the time for other things, honestly, those are the best ones to get for these positions, because it's not the ones who are sitting around doing nothing or about to retire and trying to pad their retirement with a few more opportunities. You want to get people who actively are involved in seeing patients and doing their own research. So that's sort of part of the physician matchmaking process that we try to, that Dr. Grimm and I are trying to bring to what you're doing, to add value to what you're doing.
Absolutely, Dan. And Sarah, we're happy to talk about, I don't know if you want to ask us any questions. We're happy to talk about how we work with advanced practice providers in our model, what somebody is to expect when they contact us. So we're happy to discuss that.
Oh yeah, I kind of think let's start from the beginning walkthrough process.
Absolutely.
Interested, we'll provide contact information, but how the process works about the matchmaking, the information, kind of the deep thought process that goes into kind of what they would expect.
Yeah. So when somebody contacts us, we often will have one or often more than one person on our staff start looking for that perfect match. And there's several things that go into that. Obviously, state match is one, specialization is another. So what the first thing that we do with a provider is we give them a brief questionnaire, but that is specific, has enough items on there so we can get enough information out of you to find you a good doctor. And if there's still things that aren't clear, we will call. Well, the first thing is we do this questionnaire. You fill out the questionnaire. It's the specialty that is necessary for your match. It talks about the type of work that you're going to be doing, asks more questions about the type of doctor that would be a good fit for you, ask what your budget would be, and a couple of other things. Then very often after that questionnaire is filled out, we will actually ask to do a one-on-one phone call to learn more about you. After the phone call is complete, or if you choose to do that, we will start looking for that perfect doctor for you. And again, that will be done by often more than one person. And it really depends on whether we have that perfect match in our directory where we have over 1,000 doctors, or sometimes if it's a more difficult to find match, depending on what your needs are, we will go outside of that. We will talk to our colleagues. We will speak to people that we know and say, hey, do you know anybody that's excellent who would be, interested in being a collaborating physician in this particular specialty? And that's also how we've been able to find some really good specialists. After we find a doctor that we think would be an excellent match, and usually the process on average doesn't take more than a couple of days, we will then send you a CV of the doctor that we think would be perfect for you. If you think that the doctor is great, wonderful, we will go ahead and set up a Zoom call on which there's often going to be one or two or more of people from our side, so we can listen in and answer any questions. But the most important reason for having that Zoom call is sort of like a first date. You get to know the physician. You get to ask any questions that you want. You talk about the requirements that are necessary. You talk about, say, malpractice coverage that may be necessary. How often you want to meet, what the state requirements are. And sometimes these calls can last anywhere from 10 minutes to 45 minutes or longer. It really depends on what you want to discuss. We're not in a rush. It really depends on what you need. After the phone, if that Zoom call goes well, we will then initiate, a contract that will pass between both parties for the practice, for the collaborating practice of medicine. Doctors for providers will take care of all the financials. Essentially, the way it works with that is that we will collect the collaborative fees on behalf of the physician. We sort of act as their agents. And we will take care of paying the doctors monthly on our end, so you don't have to worry about that. We will also check in regularly with both parties to make sure that everybody's happy, that the checkups are happening as they should be, and make sure everybody's happy. And that's really, I think that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
So somebody read my mind in the questions. Can we talk a bit about the state requirements for PAs? Because we know that's a complex thing per state and it does change rapidly.
Yes.
Can we touch upon kind of?
Yeah, so we have guidelines. You guys have actually put together a great overview by state of what the requirements are in all 50 states as they concern PAs. And we also have resources of where we can go and we can look that up. In some instances, we will actually go to our legal counsel and we will say, hey, look, we have a situation where they're talking about, say, controlled substances, and they're just not sure if this is something that could be done remotely or not with the collaborating provider. So sometimes for more difficult questions, we will actually go directly to our legal counsel who specializes in a particular state and get the answer. But a lot of the times, most of the questions can be very easily answered with the guidelines that you guys have or that the states put out and they're listed online. So it's never an issue.
Yeah, and also the doctors who are collaborating with you are knowledgeable about their states.
100%.
And they know where the resources are to get the answers, because ultimately, their licenses that are at stake as well. So there's a sense of responsibility that they have, that it's not just going to be a hands-off. They're the primary responsibility.
Absolutely. There was an instance this week where we had a physician in the state of Vermont who brought up the fact that, hey, I don't know if you realize this, but there has to be a secondary covering physician in case I go on vacation. And so I actually volunteered to be a secondary covering. We happen to have the same specialty. This was a sleep medicine practice. And so that worked out really well. But the doctors typically do know the requirements quite well. As Dr. Dan said, many of them have been doing this for a few years, and this is usually not their first go around, not their first rodeo. So they will have a lot of information as well many times.
All right, we got questions coming in. All right, so we knew this one was coming. What is it? Who was the movie? Show me the money. Fees. Let's talk about fees.
So the first thing that I want to say is that all members, all of you guys will get a 10% discount on the fees that you're quoted. We do not have set fees for, it's not one sort of box fits all. The reason for that is that people have different schedules. People work part-time, people work full-time, people see different numbers of patients. People see, do different things. They prescribe different things. They prescribe controlled substances, non-controlled substances. So all of those things kind of go into a little bit of a formula that then we sort of have to do some math on our end and figure out what the right budget should be. So it's not one shape fits all. The fees tend to vary depending on what the needs are, and we try to make them perfect based on what your needs are. But again, we are excited to say that everybody's going to get, everybody's entitled to a 10% off discount because we love working with you guys.
And I will comment about how important that statement that we just talked about is, because every situation is very, very different. Even the PAs that's reached out to me, whether you're a single owner operator bridging out, part-time, full-time, what's the specialty, what type of medications are you doing? We have a lot of aesthetic PAs that are branching out for a lot of home care. So there's definitely a wide range of situations. That are you moonlighting? Are you doing part-time? Are we doing home healthcare reviews, survey reviews? So it can widely. And I think not having a set standard that you're stuck to, regardless of what the need is, would be very valuable, because each personal journey would be different with what you're needing for.
Yeah, like this week, for example.
Sorry,
let me interrupt you. I was going to say, we had an inquiry from I think a 6 or 7 site multi-state, PA practice, and if we charge them the same amount as a single site, single PA practice, they'd be upset. But similarly, if we charge the single PA as much as we are charging the 6 or 7 site, the single PA would be upset as well. So it kind of works both ways. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely varies how many states you're operating in, multi-providers, all that stuff's probably taken into account too. So a couple other questions. This is a good one. I didn't think of this. Do the fees increase every year?
Inflation, like?
So the fees do not have to increase every year. The fees really will depend. So if you are a provider that's just starting out, you're just starting to build your own practice, we typically tend to be a little bit more flexible with price. Of course, if your practice takes off, doing really well, and depending on how well it's doing, that may also mean, so in several states, there's a 10% requirement for chart reviews. So that means your collaborating or supervising physician now has to review more charts or may have to do more phone calls. That means they it's more of their professional time as well. So it's only fair that if the practice is growing, the net income of the practice is growing, and the overall work requirement of your supervising physician is growing, that the fees may change after a certain period of time. But again, this is not set in stone where, after 12 months, there's a certain percent increase. Absolutely not. It's sort of subjective depending on how you're doing.
So I guess I'll follow up with questions with that. So the contract that the PA provider, PA physician enter into, is there a set time and then it's renegotiated, or what's the length of time of these
at this time? So there's an appendix in the contract. There's a section in the contract saying that the fees could change over time. We did not, at this point, we didn't specify a specific time. Maybe in the future we will. Maybe that's a good idea. I'm not sure. But we didn't want to make it a specific timeline to say, well, we're going to come back and try to charge you more money. We're not necessarily interested in doing that. I think for the most part, around 12 months, we're going to check in and see how things are going. And if things are doing tremendously better, then maybe we will rediscuss budget. But we're not trying to, trap anybody by saying we'll give you a really cheap price. And then, when they're sort of hooked on their doctor or are happy with what they're doing, then we'll force them to pay more. We're not really interested in doing that. We want to get it right the first time, and then if everybody's benefiting, great. So it's not set in stone. Usually typically at a 12-month mark, we'll reevaluate, but it's not absolute.
So it sounds like a lot of flexibility, which is probably key with these kind of things, because they could fluctuate.
Absolutely. People take time off. Fees can also, fluctuate in different ways. Sometimes somebody needs to take maternity leave or other things. we're flexible in both directions. So, we keep that in mind. People's lives change and things are always happening for different reasons.
The journey of life, that is for sure. So a couple more good questions Jennifer's asking. So do these physicians have experience working with PAs?
Absolutely. A lot of our physicians do. For some, it's they haven't worked with PAs before, but they're happy to learn, and they're happy to do it. Obviously, everybody that we bring on board, if it's a PA, they have to be willing to work with a PA. They have to want to work with a PA. We don't want somebody who's like, has some weird attitude about it. We want somebody who wants to be a team member and work together. But the answer is a lot of our doctors do have experience working with PAs. Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's safe to say also, by training and experience, you can't possibly go through medical school, internship, residency, and fellowship without working with nurses and PAs, doing a good job with it, or else you probably, won't make it through your training.
We want our doctors to look at the person that they're collaborating with as a colleague, essentially. And that's all they really, and so they know how to work with their own colleagues, and PAs are their colleagues. And so I think that's most important.
Another question coming up, and I think we've kind of touched on it. So the question is it one flat fee that the provider pays to Doctor for Providers? It sounds like a physician's on retainer. So it sounds like once the agreement's made, right, we've decided on both parts what's comfortable, set price per month type thing. And the PA has access to the physician as needed.
So no, so typically that's actually brings up another good point. If somebody signs up with Doctors for Providers and we make a match, and say it's February, but your practice, or you're not going to need the collaborator until April, we're going to charge you a smaller fee per month to be able to retain that doctor until you start practicing. When you actually start working with that doctor, the assumption is that this is an ongoing relationship from the state's perspective and everybody else's perspective. Even though you're only going to be talking maybe on the phone every couple of months, really it's an ongoing relationship. So the fees are adjusted. It's basically sort of a monthly fee. So we don't bill you when you need to talk to the doctor. It's essentially to assume that it's a continuing relationship, and the quote that we're going to give you is a monthly quote per month.
So Laura's asked this question, and I'm going to put it two different directions. So Laura said, how do we contact you? So step one for Doctor for Providers, I will have all that for you. There'll be tons of follow-up. The second part of that, it makes me think, once the PA is paired with the physician, they're given whatever they've agreed on, personal contact information, a personal email, a cell phone. Do they go to you, Doctor for Provider, to then reach the physician? So I see this as how do they contact their
So what we do actually on the Zoom call, at the end of every Zoom call, when they meet each other, we say, look, we want to make sure you guys have all of your contact information, phone, email, whatever else you prefer. They can exchange it on the Zoom call. We will also send it out to them outside of the Zoom call. The way we look at it is we help to initiate this. We're matchmakers, but we're not practicing medicine, and we don't want to come in between you and the doctor. So there shouldn't be an extra step. So when you guys need to talk to each other, when you need to reach each other, that should be done directly between the two of you.
Which makes sense. Another great question here, and I know this one was coming from Nancy. Are PAs required to provide malpractice for the doctors?
Right. So I guess I could take this one.
Sure.
So the malpractice is usually paid for by the advanced practice providers. Sometimes the physicians actually do have their own malpractice, and that would be applicable. So it's not always the case. It's kind of like just, an extra perk that you might discover for some of these physicians. But when you have to add the doctor to your plan, your existing plan, it's usually, if there's an additional fee, it's usually nominal, and your practice can basically consider it a business expense. And sorry about that. Let me decline this call. I don't know how to get it to not ring on my computer, even if I have my phone muted. So sorry about that. also, the other thing that we do is kind of a segue is we try to help you. Our goal here is really to help you to get from point A to point Z where you want to be. So as far as malpractice goes, we have actually relationships with insurance agents that we can recommend to you, who will be able to actually answer all the details for you and your collaborating doctor. But we also have connections to people who would help with just overall, business items like billing companies, and I'm sure that, your organization is also a great resource for you, and I'm sure they have the hookups as well. And, our goal is just really to help you and get you where you want to be.
And Nancy's question, it can get complex. I feel like I could do a webinar just on that, because
You can.
that all kind of depends on how, you're signing on an endorsement, because they're just collaborating. They're not seeing patients. Like, it varies how you bring them on your policy. So we could try to do some follow-up on that, because it varies. Another great question: are the doctors available for medical questions during the day if they have a complex case?
So it really, what we try to find out right from the beginning is, what kind of follow-up are you going to need with your doctor? Are you going to need the doctor to be available during regular working hours, which honestly, we expect most of our doctors to be available for emergencies. It's sort of relay to them that, look, even though this is most of the time, this is going to be chart reviews, or it may be, scheduled phone visits, you should be ready to, to answer any questions during emergency situations. So I would say most doctors are. I mean, of course, somebody could be in the middle of a visit, you could leave them a voicemail, but they really should call you back. And we always encourage our providers that if there is an issue with reaching your physician, we can help you do that. If you can't reach them, we will reach them for you. And if for whatever reason there's dissatisfaction on your end with the doctor's ability to get back to you in a timely manner, we will find you another doctor. It's not always a perfect match. Sometimes it looks perfect in the beginning, and then the doctor, for whatever reason, is not able to give the time that you need. And so that's the other advantage of working with us, is that we have a big pool of doctors that we can pair you with. So if the first one doesn't work out, that's rare, but if it doesn't work out, we'll find you somebody else.
And I will kind of bring up, he touched upon it earlier, having backup physicians. Coming currently in Florida, you have to have a backup physician if the other one's on. So having a pool like this seems like there's always, you can have that in there, which is.
Yeah. And sometimes if it's a backup physician, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the same specialty. And that's more of a, just to fulfill those requirements, just to, for them to say, okay, if this guy's away, somebody else will be there in case of an emergency. But yes, absolutely. That's why it helps to have a big pool of doctors.
Yeah, that's a big benefit. Another great question here. So the contact tier is when you're trying to estimate, and this might be a question as you guys grow, like where it's coming from, the growth of the practice. How are you deciding growth of practice? Meaning, they brought a good example, number of patients versus revenue generated, meaning this person's doing fillers on 30 patients a day. It's way different than freezing warts on 30 patients a day versus number of patients, revenue brought in.
Right.
Any thoughts to kind of that topic?
And if this relates to sort of price changes as we go forward, like a year or 2 years down the line, I think a big part, I think it's a combination of things. Again, I think you have to look at it from two directions. Revenue is one, but the other one is if there's more patients, again, if it's now the work that the doctor has to do doubles. So I think it's only fair that the doctor make a little bit more money. So I think it's a combination of how much more of a time commitment is it on the doctor's part, and how well the practice is doing financially.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you're doubling your volume, and doubling your revenue, that doesn't mean necessarily that you're having to double the doctor's pay. It's but a token of appreciation. I mean, the whole concept is to keep, great people, great talent associated with your practice, because it helps your practice to be augmented. So, it's not, for something as important as your collaborating doctor, cheaping out is not the way to go. But, we're not here to, overpromise, underdeliver. But insert other euphemism here, we want to walk the walk and talk the talk, So, sometimes looking at in a granular way, like is tougher to making decisions in business than looking at the larger gestalt. It's like I sometimes spend more time at the grocery store deciding if I want to get a pack of Twizzlers for 85 cents or something else for like $1.05. And then meanwhile, I can decide to make a decision on my kid's education. That's like a factor of, well, if I do this investment plan, it's going to be like $20,000 more. It's just the way our minds think. We don't estimate large numbers. It's actually an interesting study. Again, I'm digressing, but if this is 0 and this is 1, someone did a study and they said, where would like 10,000 be? Where would 1,000,000 be? And we always are underestimating large numbers, so we would put it like across a football field when really it's like, where's Jupiter? So it's just how our brains think about business, and something that we have to just compensate for a little bit. Sorry for the digression. Talking about Tesla, talking about moving to Mars, talking about Jupiter.
So a lot of this kind of morphs and grows as a practice grows, as the need grows, as the liability might grow. Are they expanding multi-states? Then it seems like it's kind of renegotiated depending what the need would be at that time, or they pause. Maybe volume isn't as high depending on what's going on out there, and then there could be some type of discussion around that.
Yep.
Yeah. Another good question. I know this one was coming from Jennifer. What is the average range of fees? Is the low end 500 per month? ? So we'll kind of discuss what the thought is with the ranges. It can vary drastically depending what the need is. So keep that in mind when we talk about this.
Really, there is no specific range. We're actually discussing this amongst ourselves. It's not something we've rolled out yet. We're considering, enhancing our program and making it more accessible to providers with lower budgets. Now that may require a little bit more automation on our end, and we're working with programmers and stuff to sort of make this, ultimately we may be able to work with providers with even smaller budgets, but where a lot of the assistance that we provide is sort of automated, almost like an app, like if you can imagine. We're not there yet. We're nowhere near there. And really, I think even if you automate something, it's always important to have a human component behind it. And so I think that at this point, I don't think there's a specific range. I think that I don't even know if 500 is the limit, or it would be less, or it would be more. We really try to see what the needs are. If you come to me and you say, my budget is $500, but you are doing 1 million procedures and you need a dermatologist and you need somebody only licensed in the state of Hawaii and Alaska, that's going to be impossible to find, because the doctor is just not going to, it's going to be very difficult to find, and that they're just not going to work for that budget. So it really depends. So I don't know if I can give a specific number. Give us a number and we'll tell you if we can work with it. If the number that we give you isn't perfect for you, say, look, I just can't afford that. Can you work with a slightly lower budget? We'll go to our doctor and say, look, can you work with a smaller budget? And maybe in this particular case, it's a little bit less work. So I guess that's the best answer I can give to that.
And I mean, I will touch upon it. I think that's honestly a great answer, because every need, every situation is very drastically different. Even from the PAs that's come to me asking for advice, it such a wide range. So I think the big takeaway is partnering with a company and physicians who want to get to know you as a provider, what your need is, what your market is, the patients you're serving, and then from there find a comfortable budget that would work for both ends to at least promote growth. So, which is huge. You're not locked in. And this is piggybacking to the next question about being locked in. So Jennifer has a good point. So in the contract, it kind of talked about a 90-day clause, once you're in with your physician.
Yep.
Say you're starting to work with this person and it ain't working well. Do you got to stick it out like a bad date for 90 days? Or is there an option to rematch if it's an obvious no fit?
We will absolutely do our very best to rematch you. There'll be no additional fees, and we'll try to get you somebody as fast as possible. So, our goal is not to lock you in and be like, hey, we got your 90 days worth of payments. We want to work with you for years to come. So, and we want you to be happy. So really, we will work as fast as possible to get you somebody new if that happens.
Yeah. And the reason why we have the 90 days really is also to work both ways, because I mean, you're making a commitment to them and they're making a commitment to you. So, I mean, in the general world where people give 2 weeks notice to their job at Starbucks or something like that, that's just not really part of what a team of medical professionals is about, where there's patient care at stake. And sometimes you just need to, remember that it's a team approach and there's patients at the end who are going to suffer. And you can't always replace someone within like a week or 2 weeks. So that's really the reason for it. Sometimes you just have to, we try to get you the next, if something's not working out, just like Dr. Grinman said, we're going to do everything that we can and make a real concerted effort to fix this situation. But we all do have a commitment. So we balance that and look and realize that we're going to be with someone else who's a very short amount of time. Just have a little bit of patience. Maybe try to correct a few things in the meantime and troubleshoot during that time.
Makes sense. I'm sure if there's an extenuating circumstances, that's all different. But for the most part, you have colleagues helping colleagues. So I would imagine that hopefully wouldn't happen often. Some good questions coming in. I know this is a Texas PA. So how do they work with practice ownership? Meaning a lot of PAs are wanting to open in states that require a percentage-based ownership, like Texas. Texas can own 49% as a PA and 51% goes to the physician. Whenever PAs come to me about the entrepreneur part of this, I always suggest you can open in any state, right? So keep that in mind with how you want to do it. But say a PA comes to you with this type of situation, how does that conversation kind of go?
Oh, it certainly is more, and we've done this several times. It certainly is more challenging when you have to get a physician involved who has to be a practice owner, but it is doable. You just have to have the right conversation. You really just have to look for the person who's open to that and said, look, that's maybe a better opportunity for me financially to some degree, or more challenging, but I like that. And so we will go out, and if we need to find a physician who is also willing to be a PA owner in Texas, then we will do that for you. Again, it may take a little bit more time to find the right match, but we certainly will do that.
So I know we've had some people trickle in, and just to kind of summarize, because he made a good point. So this company will get to know you and your practice and your needs, whatever that's going to be. From there, they go to their robust network of colleagues who are willing to help other colleagues to find the right person who's qualified and vetted. So they would bring the right person to your need, whether it's percentage ownership or depending what the need would be in a niche market. Because I had somebody ask for like a GI pain management. I'm like, well, I'm sure they could find something. And yeah. I'm sure the speed of which they find your need depends on how unique your situation would be. Does that sound about correct?
That's absolutely correct. And sometimes we do tell people, yeah, you have to bear with us. I mean, some matches are really unique and really challenging. But we're never fazed by any match. We're always willing to go and find somebody, and 99% of the time we do.
Yeah, it's a challenge to us if it's something that we don't necessarily have on staff, and because we actually have multiple recruiters who are working with us who are, that's their background, is recruiting. And I mean, that's not to say that we may not already have them within our 2 degrees of separation. I mean, Dr. Grimman and I have worked with a lot of professionals over our careers thus far, and everyone knows a whole nother group, and so everyone's 2 or 3 degrees of separation away, basically on our social media. And
but yeah, Dan, it does seem like every month we seem to hire 1 or 2 new recruiters because the needs are growing, and we find that we want to be better and faster at what we do. And so, yeah, we usually have multiple people available to find these unique matches.
So basically you're saying, bring the uniqueness, and go for it, bring it. You never know what you might get. So couple random things that I thought of oh, somebody said, just to confirm, they have physicians in all states. They could find you someplace, anybody. So I'm pretty sure that's probably, yeah.
Yeah.
You want Alaska, you want Hawaii, you want something. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
that's
don't have that specific specialty for whatever reason, we will find you one. It's doable.
Try to get someone in the Caribbean islands so we can make a business trip out to check on how their site collaboration is doing, and
Puerto Rico. That's
Puerto
Sure.
yeah,
Guam.
you could practice in Puerto Rico. Another great question. I think we might have touched on this, but we can summarize. Do you determine the rate or what is normal for a supervising physician yearly? So, I mean, we can summarize that. So basically, Amy, they're going to get to know you, your practice, what your need is, and that rate's going to vary. They don't really have a published set rate. It could kind of be, bring us your budget, bring us your need, and then there could be some type of need met out of that. It can wait. It's a big range. How many states? What are you doing? What do you need your physician to do? So, and do you have doctors with multiple state licenses? I think that's a given. I think most of your providers.
We do, and we prioritize recruiting doctors with multiple state licenses for different reasons. Telemedicine's very big growing field, will continue to be, and it's just sometimes one doctor maybe, it's one doctor may be a good match for another position, and it's convenient if they have another state license. So it's always good to have. So we always prioritize having doctors. A lot of our doctors have multiple state licenses.
In fact, we even have some doctors who tell us, let them know if there's a state even that they don't have a license for, because they want to get a license for it so they can participate, because they've already been involved and they enjoy it so much.
Yeah. There's a lot of there's something called the state compact for physicians, where it's usually the smaller states, actually the ones with the less people, that will allow doctors to go through this compact, and it sometimes may only take a week to get a new state license. Some of the bigger states are a little bit more challenging, just as with everything. Texas, New York, California, Florida are not part of the compact, and so it's a little bit more of a process. But then again, because they're more populated, the odds of us having doctors in those states is much bigger. But it's usually not a problem for a doctor to get a new state license if absolutely necessary.
And plus, that's probably a benefit because a lot of providers now are in multi-state. So if you're wanting to grow, you could probably grow with the same physician that you're paired with, most likely.
Right.
With expanding states, if it's a good connection and they either have the license already or they're willing to get it, it sounds like.
Yep.
So somebody asked about Kentucky. I'm sure you got people in Kentucky. So depending what you're needing, Amy, out of Kentucky, I'm sure they can get it for you. And contact info, make sure y'all get all that good stuff. Is there a website to read up on your company? Yeah, we'll make sure to I'll post it in the website. We'll get all that. But yeah, they have a very nice website, a lot of good information. Yeah, Doctor for Providers, you can it's out there.
It's disappearing, but it's doctorforproviders.com.
It's a very nice website.
And you can use FOR or the number 4, both work. Doctors for Providers, either way works.
Do you work Texas and PAs? Yeah.
Yeah.
Got Texas covered. So this is a longer one. Let's see. All right. If you're in a specialty such as pediatrics, does the MD have to be specifically the same, or does it include them being the medical? Oh, so Amy, that kind of depends. I'd have to read up. I'm not offhand since I don't operate in Texas. That depends on the state legislative, which I'm sure we have researched with PAVMT. They have to. Depends what your state rule is. That's
and if you need a pediatrician, we'll get you one.
Yeah, it kind of depends. If
probably want to have someone in the same specialty anyways, just if you have questions, and let's say you're trying to ask a pathologist about a pediatrics question or something, it may not work.
Absolutely. With kids, it's a lot of weight-based dosing, and that really kids are not just small adults, as we always say. Kids have very unique needs. So I think that if you are in a pediatric specialty, odds are you probably do want to be with a pediatrician.
Yeah. And the follow-up is, does this usually include them being a medical director? That term is usually just dependent on insurance applications or so for malpractice purposes, if you're adding them as a medical director, they're assuming they're going to be including policy making, other admin duties. If your physician's not needed to do admin duties, you don't normally need to title them as a medical director.
Right.
And we talked about malpractice coverage. Just to summarize, usually it will, if the physician has an independent policy, that's a bonus, but all physicians are coming with different backgrounds. So if they do not have an independent, it would be something you'd have to consider adding to your business med mal group policy, or adding them as an endorsement or a writer on your policy, which we'll try to get more information to come to clear that up. But there's different ways depending on who your carrier is. Thank you for joining. They're saying, oh, thank you for all the good information. It's a lot of good stuff. Bring your questions, everyone. We have a few more minutes. We'll wrap up, answer everything. You'll have email addresses for the contacts. You'll have the website address and who to message. They'll take your, concerns directly into what you need and get to know you and find out what need they can fit, which is fantastic.
It's really like a dating service,
Almost.
It's like, you meet the doctor and the doctor meets you, and you find out that, if you like long walks on the beach, or no, what's your favorite color?
Similar goals, similar aspirations, similar, meeting a patient need. So am I putting all this information so I'm going to do both. It will be on the website for members, and it will be sent to everyone who's registered on this. You'll get all that information, and we'll post contact information on the Facebook page as well. So there'll be plenty of information. There is a 10% discount they are offering for PAVMT, which can be quite a bit depending on what your need is, depending on the cost, right? That could save quite a bit yearly off these services. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. So if you're coming from the society, definitely let us know. And then we'll know to give you the discount.
That's always
Is there a way to verify that you're from the society? What if someone says they're from society, but they're not really from the society? They were just told to say they're from the society.
I'm sure everybody's honest.
Is there like a special handshake, or
secret code? Did you get the secret code on your welcome?
Nighthawk flies at dawn or something?
Yeah, people are excited. Some people already have their Zoom meetings set up with their future physicians coming up. So, that'll be great. Yeah.
Good. Happy to.
So last minute call, any questions? No question is the wrong question. Feel free. I don't have to call you out. If you put it on there, it's okay. No bad questions. If not, you will have contact information to ask anything else that you think of. Their website's fantastic with a lot of information. There is a blog post that I did for PAVMT that kind of goes over a lot of tips and things to think about when you're trying to find your collaborating provider. Check our job board. We will be having positions coming up for national companies. Some need supervising physicians coming with them. Some don't. There's moonlighting opportunities. So just things to look forward in the future. Last minute call, y'all. Anybody, you can say hi, you can chat. If not, we'll start saying our goodbyes unless anybody has it.
If you think of anything like right after, the call ends, which, happens to the best of us, sometimes I'm dictating a report, and then like right after I dictated, I'm like, oh, wait, that's why I have a 2-minute countdown so I can still open it up. But anyway, you can email us or call us anytime. And Sarah, of course, and, you have great, resources there. We had a meeting with Sarah and her colleagues, back when we met, and they all seem very well informed and knowledgeable and willing to help you. So it's really a process. There's no way even from this informative session that you're going to know everything you need to know to be like off you go. So yeah, it's a process, and we're here along the way to help you. And
yeah. In closing, if you surround yourself with the right team of people, high quality people to meet your goals, you're going to be successful in whatever endeavor you're going to go on. And I think that's the biggest takeaway. You have down to earth company, people that you can easily just, communicate with, which is very important. So I welcome everybody. Thank you all. We had 21 participants today. It's been recorded. It will be sent out. You'll have all your contact information. So thank you very much, everybody. On that, we'll say our goodbyes. So
thank you guys very much.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Have a great one. Be safe.
Bye.